Well, hello, my friends, and welcome once again to the Romano Report Podcast. As I am recording this at the moment, it is 3:12 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday, January 23rd. I don't know about you, but I am glad this week is almost over. I don't know how much you need a break. You need a break from this amount of stupidity and awfulness. Um, God, so much in just one week. This is why, for me, I can't keep track of time in the Trump era. Something that happened like 2 days ago feels like it was 2 months ago. It wasn't that long ago when everyone was at the edge of their seat, wondering if at any moment the United States military was literally going to invade the sovereign territory of one of our NATO allies. Well, fortunately, that turned out to be just another bullshit taco move, seemingly. I mean, who knows? He went to Davos and backed out, said he wasn't going to use force, but who knows? That could change tomorrow. You know, he could get very little sleep tonight. He can see something on Fox and Friends in the morning that sets him off, and then he could be back to threatening to invade Greenland again. I mean, who the hell knows? But for the moment, it appears that we are not going to be engaged in war with one of our NATO allies. But you know that this whole thing begs the question. I heard it being talked about earlier today on one of the cable stations, and the guests were talking about the damage that Donald Trump has done to the country, specifically with respect to our alliances, specifically NATO. And the question was, can this be repaired? When this guy is gone, is it possible to repair the damage that he has done to our alliances? And the general consensus seemed to be that it's possible, but it's going to be hard and it's going to take a while. I don't know that I agree with it. I don't know that it's possible. I guess it depends upon what do you mean by repair? Can our relationship be improved? Yes, I think that's certainly possible. Repaired? Put back to the way it was before? I don't know that that's possible anymore. I think that what this whole episode has taught our allies, not just in NATO, not just in Europe, but around the world, it's a lesson they should have learned early on. And that is that they can't count on the United States anymore. We are not the same country. When you look back over, recent history since the Second World War, the world order that has developed with the United States sort of the leader of the free world, the leader of the Western alliance, so to speak. That developed over decades. But why does it need to always be that way? And it's not going to be anymore. Because we're not the same country, is the point. That United States no longer exists. I mean, what is a country? It's a group of people living within a defined territory. They have a government. But we're really just, when you just pull back, you just zoom out, we're just groups of people with territorial lines that we arbitrarily, not arbitrarily, but over the course of time, we've divvied up the earth for these little groups of people to live in. That's really all it is. A country is nothing more than the people of the country, and we are not the same people. We're certainly not the same. We're not the same group of people we were 50 years ago or 10 years ago. We're always changing. Every country is always changing. You're always a new group of people. People die off, new people are born, children become adults. Countries are always evolving. They're never the same. And that's the problem. This group of people that now comprise the United States is a group of people that the rest of the world cannot count on. Had Donald Trump been an aberration, maybe. If Donald Trump only won in 2026, then lost in 2020, and then if the American people had treated an insurrectionist and someone who attempted to overthrow the republic as other countries would have treated that person and prosecuted that person and put him in prison where he belongs and put in place changes to our law and, if necessary, our Constitution to the greatest degree possible, prevent that sort of thing from ever happening again, maybe things would be different. But we didn't do that. We didn't hold him accountable. None of them have been held accountable. They all got off. The people who stormed the Capitol, beat police officers nearly to death, they all got pardoned. In fact, one of them, forget the piece of shit's name, but he was in jail, having been arrested. I don't think he had been put on trial yet. I think he was still awaiting his trial. He was arrested and charged with beating police officers with a baseball bat on January 6th for Donald Trump. That person was in Minneapolis last weekend organizing a protest in support of these masked ICE thugs. Now, admittedly, that didn't go too well for him. He was run out of town. I saw videos of this. He's a racist, and he was ironically saved by an angry crowd of decent people who wanted to run him out of there. Bunch of white people. This guy's a white guy. He was the angry mob was mostly white people. He was saved. The man who came to his rescue and tried to protect him and get him out of there was a black man. Anyway, he got a little bloodied up and he was run out of there. But Mr. Tough Guy on January 6th was beating police officers with a baseball bat. He's pardoned now. Now these January 6th insurrectionists are demanding money from the federal government. They want reparations for being wrongly targeted and persecuted, prosecuted and arrested. And they've been pardoned now, and now they want restitution. And Donald Trump has talked openly about doing that, and he probably will. Maybe he'll do it on the way out. But you and I will probably end up paying millions of dollars to these insurrectionists. So there has been no consequences. And so what is the lesson? That you can try to overthrow the republic and get away with it. Thank you. I appreciate that. By the way, I'm going to take questions later on if time permits. I have a few things I want to discuss here first. So, if we had dealt with our insurrectionists, our traitors, and the chief insurrectionist, the man who organized the whole thing, the man for whose benefit all of it was done, all the violence was committed, the ringleader, Donald Trump, if we had held him to account, maybe things would be different with respect to our relationships with our allies. But that's not what happened. The president who succeeded Donald Trump did nothing to hold him accountable. His attorney general did nothing to hold him accountable, as we know all too well. And not only did the next administration do nothing to hold him accountable, the American people then, with the attention spans of goldfish, forgot, memory hold it, or were allowed themselves to believe the bullshit spin that it wasn't an insurrection. It was just a speech that got out of hand. It was a few bad actors. Or, as many of them believe, it was actually instigated by the FBI. Whatever nonsense they believe. But the American people forgot, didn't understand really what happened. That's a big part of it. So many people have no idea what actually happened, what Donald Trump actually did, the crimes he committed. It wasn't just January 6th. It wasn't just the violence of that day. That was the final act. That was the last. This is our last chance. We've tried everything else. Nothing worked. We tried a fraudulent elector scheme. I mean, Donald Trump, he pressured elections officials, threatened them with prosecution. We heard it on tape in Georgia. You're committing a crime if you don't throw out these votes, is essentially what he said to Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State of Georgia. They had people pretend to be electors, swear to false documents, and submitted them to Congress to try to overthrow just the number of crimes committed. January 6th was just the last-ditch effort to try to overturn the results when nothing else worked. And most people don't have any idea. Your average American, fucking stupid as they are, ignorant as they are, just think it was a speech that got out of hand. Oh, you can't blame Trump. After all, he said peacefully. He says that all the time. I said peacefully. They just ignore the fact that I said peacefully. Obviously, that was put in there so he could make that argument, so he could try to have plausible deniability. I told them to be peaceful. What was the purpose of directing them to the Capitol anyway? What did you want them to do? What was the purpose? You got them all riled up. You summoned them there. Remember that tweet? Come to Washington, January 6th will be wild. Then you get them all riled up. You tell them, if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. Then he directs them to the Capitol. For what reason? Exactly the reason that we saw. To do violence. To try to shut down Congress and prevent them from certifying the election that he lost. But most people don't know any of that he organized it. It was all intentional. It was all part of overturning the election. They just think, oh, he gave a speech, got out of hand. He said peaceful. That's like going to a bank, sticking a gun in the clerk's face, saying, give me all your money, but this is not a robbery. And then you're going to claim at trial, hey, I told her it wasn't a robbery. Same thing. But we're surrounded by fucking morons in this country. Absolute blithering fucking idiots. So not only did we not punish our traitors, our insurrectionists, the man who attempted to overthrow the republic, we rewarded him as a country. We reelected him. We put him back in power. So what is the rest of the world to think? They could have said, and they would have, because looking at these, I'm sorry, the European leaders have been so weak. I'm glad now to see them finally waking up, but god dang, up until now, they have been pathetic. Gavin Newsom was right. This is embarrassing. It's been pathetic. He wants to give knee pads, Donald Trump branded knee pads, to all these European leaders. I'm glad they're finally starting to talk tough. Glad they're finally starting to see what Donald Trump actually is. But they've been bending over backwards, doing everything they can to prevent themselves from arriving at the only obvious conclusion. You know, I talk about a quote that's attributed to Winston Churchill a lot with respect to Americans and whether or not they're ever going to wake the hell up and take care of this problem. And Churchill said something along the lines of, you can always count on the Americans to do the right thing after they've tried everything else. Well, you know, I'm sorry, but that can also be applied to these European leaders. Maybe we can still count on them to maybe do the right thing, as it looks like they're starting to do now. But damn if they didn't try everything else before realizing we have to stand up to Donald Trump. They've been kissing his ass for a fucking year, bending over backwards, giving him everything he wants, presenting him with fucking crowns, for crying out loud, gold clocks for his desk, you know, just everything, just kissing his ass, giving him gifts, praising him. It doesn't freaking work. Wow. Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that. Just bending over backwards. So they didn't want to come to this obvious conclusion that you have to stand up to a bully, that there's no amount of ass kissing that will work. It might work for a very short period of time, but you have to keep kissing his ass. And the bribes don't work either. You have to keep bribing him. You give him one bribe, that's only going to satisfy him for a little while. He's going to be back for more. And you know, a bigger bribe will be necessary. So the only solution is not to give in to him at all. Do not kiss his ass. Don't give him anything. And I said, with respect to this Greenland thing, he has to get nothing from this. Nothing. You know, I know he's out there pretending that he has the framework of a deal on Greenland. No, he doesn't. Don't give him a damn thing. Because if you give him anything, then he can claim victory. And he's going to come back for more, too. And he may anyway, like I said. So he says he's not going to use force. He says that. See what he says tomorrow. Who the hell knows? So, anyway, if the United States had done the right thing after Donald Trump tried to overthrow our country, and he was sitting in a federal prison right now, as he should be, and so many of these members of Congress who were grilling Jack Smith yesterday, they should be in a federal prison right next to him. And I think many of them would have ended up there too. As I was talking about on the Romano Report the other day, you know, Jack Smith had only indicted Trump on the January 6th stuff. I think that was strategic. He didn't want, I think, a bunch of co-defendants because it would have slowed down the whole process. And he had no time to waste, given the fact that Joe Biden and Merrick Garland kind of fucked him over and waited 2 years to do anything. And so he was trying to beat the clock. And unfortunately, he ran out of time. As was all, when you waited 2 years before appointing a special counsel, you're guaranteed that nothing's going to happen. Because the president is not a normal defendant. He's going to be able to raise novel legal issues that have never been adjudicated before, like presidential immunity and all this stuff. And all these witnesses who would have information are people close to the president. And you know, they would all claim executive privilege, and Trump would claim executive privilege. And before you can get any of them to testify before a grand jury, you'd have to litigate executive privilege with respect to each and every damn one of them. It was going to take forever, which is why waiting 2 years was a death sentence for the prosecution. That it was never going to get to trial in time. I mean, even with all those delays, if the Supreme Court had done the right thing and ruled quickly in that case, it could have gone to trial in the summer of 2024. It's possible it could have happened, but everything would have had to fall just right. Now, Joe Biden and Merrick Garland made a decision early on, and I'm sick and tired of Merrick Garland getting all the blame for it. I mean, he deserves all the blame on the prosecution side of all of this. There's other people that deserve blame for letting Trump get away with all this. Mitch McConnell, Kevin McCarthy, so many, the Supreme Court, and on and on and on. But with respect to the prosecution and doing nothing for 2 years until the January 6th committee forced their hand with their public hearings in the summer of 2022, I guess it was not just Merrick Garland. It was Merrick Garland and Joe Biden, the both of them together. Nobody forced Joe Biden to nominate Merrick Garland. Nobody forced Joe Biden to keep Merrick Garland after it was clear he wasn't going to do a damn thing. This was a conscious decision, and it might have been a top-down decision from Biden. We just want to move on. That was clearly the messaging of the Biden administration from day one. We just want to move on. Trump is never going to be president again. We just want to move on. And moving on meant letting him get away with it so that we don't rile up his supporters and make the situation worse. We just want it to go away. Now we're in this position. And so the point is, if we had done the right thing, and if we had corrected our mistake as a country, then our allies could have said, you know what? That was a fluke. Donald Trump getting elected was a fluke. He lost the popular vote. The country wasn't in support of him. He just sneaked through because of this quirk of the American electoral process. They have this stupid electoral college system that they never got rid of. It made sense at the time for the reason it was incorporated. The way our government is set up right now, fundamentally, there are a lot of very basic differences between the way it is now and the way it was at the beginning. The states are different. We have a completely different outlook of the relationship between states and the federal government, all this stuff. At the time, the Electoral College actually made sense for the reason it was put in there. It no longer makes any sense for what the country has become, and it hasn't for a very long time. We should have gotten rid of it a long time ago, but we didn't, and there's no serious moves to do it. So anyway, our allies could have said, you know what? They have this stupid fucking antiquated system, this Electoral College system, and Donald Trump lost the popular vote. The American people didn't want him, but he snuck in there, but they corrected their mistake. This criminal is sitting in prison right now. They have made amends for all the horrible things that they did with Donald Trump as president. They've corrected it. They've put in place changes to their laws and their constitutions to safeguard against that happening again. And so it was an aberration. America is still fundamentally good. They are good partners. We can trust them. They're still the same good country they always have been. This was just an aberration. You can't look at the United States and say that anymore. Not after we reelected him. And not only that, and here's the point that I want to make about going forward. After Trump, can we repair the damage? Can we repair our relationships? I think our European allies, and really allies around the country, would be out of their fucking minds if they just go back to the way things were with the United States. Because as I said, we're not the same country. Not only did we reelect this guy, but importantly, the world knows we have a two-party system. It's ridiculous, but this is the system we have. By the way, parties are not built into the Constitution. In fact, many of the framers, the founders of the country, warned adamantly against a system like this, against political parties, because they foresaw exactly what we have now. People's allegiance would be to the party, not to the country, not to the Constitution, not to the rule of law. Tribal loyalties partisan loyalties would take precedent over loyalties to the country. And that's exactly what we're seeing. But this is the stupid system we have. And one of the two major parties is all in on this. They are completely subservient to Donald Trump. It's not even a political party in most respects. It's a cult. It's a personality cult, masquerading as a political party. So it's not like, even if we move on, even if we elect a Democratic president in 2028, the country will not have fundamentally changed. There will still be one party that is batshit crazy and now has been remade in Donald Trump's image. It is no longer the party of Ronald Reagan or any other Republican. Pick your Republican. It has now been remade in Donald Trump's image, which means it's an isolationist party. It's a party that doesn't actually believe in anything. It bends with the whims of whoever their cult leader is at the time. Hey, thank you. Appreciate that. It's not a party that can be counted on. Republicans, up until Donald Trump, were adamantly opposed to Russian aggression. That was one of the main pillars of the Republican Party. The Republican Party doesn't even have a platform anymore. They literally got rid of their platform, and they basically said, our new platform is whatever Donald Trump wants. What's it going to be when Donald Trump is gone? Whatever the next head of the party is, whoever they nominate in 2028, if it's J.D. Vance, if it's Donald Trump Jr., whoever it is it just whatever that person wants, that's the new party platform? There are no Republicans of the past, even of the very recent past, before Trump came and transformed the party, that would be on the side of Russia in what's going on now in the world. Their invasion of Ukraine and everything else that Russia's doing. But yet now the Republican Party is a pro-Russian. And they're an anti-Ukraine party now. They hate Ukraine. Why? Because Donald Trump tried to blackmail, essentially, Volodymyr Zelensky during his first term. He said, I'm not giving you this foreign aid that has been appropriated by Congress unless you launch a criminal investigation of one of my likely opponent in the next election, Joe Biden. And you don't even really have to do an investigation, just announce one so that I can run against him and say that he's under criminal investigation in Ukraine. And that, of course, that phone call was recorded and leaked, and it became the basis of his first impeachment. So he hates Zelensky, even though Zelensky never said Trump should be impeached or spoke out against Trump. He wasn't in any position to. Yet Trump hates Zelensky because Trump got caught. And so now, because of that, the entire Republican Party hates Zelensky, hates Ukraine. This is insanity. So we have a two-party system, and one of the two major political parties who right now control a majority of the Congress and hold the White House, they are the majority party, at least in terms of Washington politics, leading our federal government. They are the majority party right now. The rest of the world sees this. So even if we elect a Democratic president in 2028, so what? That insane batshit crazy party could come back to power 4 years after that. And who knows, maybe they'll even if we elect a Democrat, maybe Republicans will get Congress, or they could get Congress 2 years later. The rest of the world cannot trust us anymore, because we are now a people that elects people like these Trump cultists who control the Republican Party. So we're not the same country anymore, because we're not the same people anymore. And they'd be out of their damn mind. I'm not sure black or male. They'd be out of their damn minds to go back to treating the United States the way we were before Trump came along. We're not that country anymore. And that's probably the most lasting thing that Donald Trump, and the worst thing that Donald Trump has done, is that he has fundamentally changed the nature of who we are as a country. You know, that's not really, I mean, the framers of our Constitution would have been appalled at such a thing, that the American people would give over such power to the president of the United States, that we would allow one person to be able to shape us. You know, the federal government was basically supposed to be background noise. It wasn't supposed to be the center of American life. The states were supposed to have so much more authority, and honestly, they really do, which is why I've been saying that the key, and we could talk specifics, but generally speaking, the key to resisting this Trump tyranny is through the states, because the states retain most of the power in our constitutional system. You know, people don't understand the way the Constitution is supposed to work, which is one of the reasons I started my various platforms. And if teaching Americans about how their government works and their Constitution works is my goal, it'll be a goal that is never met, and so I'll always have work to do. It's amazing how little most Americans know about their own government. But the way the Constitution works is that the states created the federal government, right? The states existed before the federal government. They did not create a federal government that was going to supplant them and steal their rights and walk all over them. And the Constitution gives to the federal government only specific powers. You might have heard the phrase that the federal government is a government of limited enumerated authority. What that means is the federal government only has that power which is specifically given to it in the Constitution. Any power that is not specifically given to the federal government by the Constitution is reserved to the states or to the people. That's the 10th Amendment. Most people think that the federal government can do, that most people have it exactly backwards, that the federal government can do whatever it wants unless there's a law or something in the Constitution that says it can't. That's exactly backwards. The federal government has no power to do something unless the Constitution specifically gives it that power. And most of the power that the Constitution gives to the federal government is laid out in Article 1, which is the power given to Congress, because it's Congress that really decides what the laws are, decides what the federal government is going to do. It's not supposed to be the president. The whole thing is out of whack. The president executes the laws passed by Congress, or at least that's what's supposed to happen. So the president really is not even supposed to set policy of any kind. That's all supposed to come through the elected representatives of the people in Congress. But our whole system is completely out of whack. Anyway, but the Constitution still exists as it is. It's been bastardized over the years out of habit, not because we've changed the Constitution in any way. Now, the effect given certain provisions of the Constitution have been altered by horrible decisions of the Supreme Court, which can be corrected. Decisions can be overturned. There are certain decisions can be overturned by acts of Congress. So there's things that we can do. But the Constitution hasn't been changed with respect to the balance of power between the federal government and the states. We've just sort of done it over time by habit. Presidents exceeding their authority and just been allowed to get away with it. not because we have actually changed our laws and constitution to give the president more power. It's just been a president exceeds the scope of his authority, nothing happens, and so now that's the new limit. It's not the legal limit, but it's the limit in practice. And then another president comes along and pushes it even further and encroaches on the powers of the courts and the Congress and the states. And he's allowed to get away with it. So the next president comes in, does it a little more. And we've been doing this incrementally, further empowering the president beyond what the Constitution empowers the president to do. We've been allowing them to get away with this shit because Congress has never been an effective check. Excuse me, I got a tickle in my throat going on. Congress has very seldom over the years pushed back and reined in presidents. In fact, in our recent history, the Congress is complicit in this, and complicit for two different reasons. Again, going back to I didn't know I was going to be talking about the philosophy of our government and the Constitution, but whatever. This is where we're going. I hope you guys like this. But there's two reasons. First, going back to my comments about partisanship and why the founders warned against parties, because loyalty would be to party, not to country, not to the Constitution. So that happens. You know, when Congress is controlled by the same party as the president, they let him get away with anything he wants. No pushback whatsoever, as we're seeing right now. There's seemingly no limit to what the president can do. But the other reason why Congress has, over the decades, allowed presidents to accumulate all this power is because members of Congress don't actually want to do anything. Most of them. They want to be something, not do something. They want to be members of Congress. They don't really give a shit too much about actually doing anything. And doing things, it jeopardizes them continuing to be a member of Congress. Because a lot of the votes that they cast are difficult votes. And there's going to be people back home who are angry about the vote, about how they vote, no matter which way they vote. Right? And so it's a lot easier for them politically to not take any votes. Don't do anything and you don't piss anybody off. Or you piss people off less by doing nothing. And so what they have said is, over the years, essentially is, look, just you do it, President. You do it. We don't want to do anything. If we have to take a vote, people are going to be mad, so you just do it. Or they actually pass laws to that effect. There's some issue, some important issue that people want addressed. Okay, so they'll pass a law. But the law they pass basically says, yeah, we're passing this law allowing the president to decide the issue however he wants. Delegating all this authority to the president. That's what they've been doing for decades. And that's why presidents have all this power that they shouldn't rightly have. And then their power has been, they've been given this great power by a Congress that wants to give their power away. Congress after Congress after Congress doing this. But then on top of it, we have presidents who seek to expand their authority even beyond that, and then Congresses who don't push back. So that's where we are. That's why this whole system is completely out of whack. But back to my point. The fundamental power balance between the states and the federal government is still what it always has been. And most of the power lies with the states because very little is actually given to the federal government in the Constitution, specifically Article 1. There are really the way the federal government tells the states what to do, largely, because you'll see the states doing what the federal government wants, what the president wants, usually, because he now rules by dictate. Congress is largely cut out of it. But the way the federal government gets states to do what they want, usually, is through money. They can't tell them what to do because, again, our Constitution does not give the federal government, certainly one branch of the federal government, the president, but not the federal government at all, the power to just tell states what to do. The way they do it, the way they get the states to do what they want to do, is with money and strings attached to the money. So they say, hey, if you want this money, states, then you have to pass these laws. You have to do what we say. So essentially, the federal government is kind of telling the states what to do, and the states are falling in line because they want the money. The states don't have to go along with a lot of this shit. And none of the states take orders from the president. So I hear all the time about executive orders. Oh, he's going to cancel elections. Hear that all the time. How's he going to do that? I don't know. He's just going to do it. He does everything else. He does so much he gets away with. That's not legal. So I'm sure he'll cancel elections. Yeah, but how? No, I never get an answer to that question because nobody has any idea what they're talking about. What's he going to do? Issue an executive order? The states don't have to follow his executive orders. They're not laws. And the states, the federal government can't pass laws telling the states what to do anyway, for the most part. They certainly can't pass a law telling states to cancel elections. Anyway, okay. I think I've gone on enough about that. My point is to come full circle. We're not the same country. We're not the same people. The people of this country have been fundamentally changed. One of the two major political parties is all in on this, and that political party will endure after Donald Trump. Don't know what level of power they will have in this country, but you'd be out of your mind if you were another country thinking that things are just going to go back to the way they were with the United States. They have to move on. They have to make alternate arrangements. And that's what they're doing, apparently. That's what they're talking about now. Mark Carney gave a powerful speech on this the other day, basically saying we can't count on America anymore, specifically in NATO. We can't allow the United States to just run roughshod over NATO. We smaller and middle-sized countries, we need to band together and stand up to the United States, or we're going to become slaves to the United States. We don't have the same relationship anymore, and we can't. That needs to be your posture if you're in Europe. And I think that's what they're doing. They are making, I think, as fast as they can now, alternate arrangements, new alliances, new economic alliances. Trump has destroyed our trade with other countries. So now they're forced to look for new economic ties, trading partners, moving on from the United States. Trump thinks that you could do these things to other countries, and what, they're just all going to come back? Yes, sir, can I have another? Thank you, sir, may I have another? They're supposed to thank you for the ass beating and then bend over to let you do it again? They're just going to keep, they have no agency? They can't make their own decisions? They can't seek alternate relationships? Of course they can't. And that's what they're doing. They've had enough. They've had enough of being mistreated by the United States, by this president, who the people of the United States, acting collectively through their electoral process, have empowered to treat them like shit. So it's not just Donald Trump. These other countries have got to be looking at the American people, generally speaking, with scorn. Fuck these people. We have been good allies to the United States for decades, and this is how we're treated? And one of the two major political parties loves it? We can't trust this country anymore. So we need to look for new economic relationships, trading partnerships, new diplomatic relationships, political alliances, military and defensive alliances. He has completely upended the world order. And so it's good that, at least for the time being, he's no longer threatening military invasion of Denmark to seize Greenland. But that doesn't mean it won't change tomorrow. And it doesn't matter. The damage is done. Vladimir Putin got what he wanted. Hey, thank you, Music Addict. I appreciate that. So Putin, acting through Agent Krasnov, has gotten what he wants. The question is, has Putin, acting through his puppet Trump, done enough damage to NATO, or is he going to come back? He might be satisfied because it doesn't matter that Trump has walked back from this. The seeds of the destruction of NATO are already planted, and Trump is continuing. Just because he walked back the threat of military force, he's still blowing up NATO as we speak. He's just threatened or just insulted NATO, saying that, oh, yeah, when he said, I don't know, we would be there for these other NATO member countries if they were attacked, but I don't know if they would be here for us. They've never really stood up for us. They didn't really help us out in Afghanistan after 9/11. Yeah, they were there, but they didn't really do too much. They weren't on the front lines. They stood back. That has caused an uproar. So he's continuing to insult our allies, denigrate them, making the relationship worse. So just because he walked back the threat of military force to take Greenland, he's still doing damage. The question, I guess, is Putin happy with this degree of damage? Maybe they pulled back from the threat of force against, seize Greenland. Maybe they're going to do this for a while. Let's see. We've already established major rifts in the NATO alliance. Europe is pulling back from their alliances with the United States. I can still have Trump going out there and insulting NATO and insulting all these countries, continuing to do further damage. Maybe I have damaged NATO enough and just continued damage by my puppet Trump just attacking them. Maybe that's going to be enough to destroy NATO and get me what I want. If not, he's still got 3 years left. It could be, in a month from now, next year, whatever, Putin calls his puppet, Mr. Trump, it is time. There's not enough damage done to NATO. We need to speed up. You must invade Greenland. And so Trump will. Because Putin still holds all the cards. What exactly those cards are, I don't know. Personally, I think it's compromise. I think he has something seriously damaging on Donald Trump. In fact, I've mentioned this many times before. Trump's own director of national intelligence in his first term, Dan Coats, after leaving the administration, openly speculated that that Putin has something on Trump because he couldn't explain why Trump is so subservient to Putin. He could come up with no explanation other than Putin has something on him and he controls him. And I think I think that's pretty obvious. It's the only thing that explains everything we've seen with Trump and Putin. This man is a sleaze. He is scum. Talking about Trump here. I mean, they both are, but talking about Trump. He is a low-life criminal scumbag of the highest order. Just think of all the horrible things that he may have done in his life that we know nothing about, but that other people do. What videos might exist? What photos, what documents, what audio recordings might exist, and who might have them? There's obviously something with respect to the Epstein, the files, and I think there's probably stuff that's not in those files that he's also worried about coming out. I think there may be people in the files who have information on Trump and are saying, you better cover up my involvement because if I go down, you're going down, buddy, because I got the goods on you. So who the hell knows how many people might have information on Donald Trump that they use to control him? By the way, with respect to the Epstein files, release law, we're over a month now that everything was supposed to be released. They're in open violation. By the way, we talk about impeachment, and I think if Democrats take control of Congress next year, there shouldn't be one impeachment. There should be multiple impeachments. There are so many impeachable offenses that he has committed. I couldn't even list them all right now if I had to. There's so many. What I would suggest the Democrats do is don't take all of the things that he has done that are impeachable and put him in one impeachment. Don't do that. Do each one individually. Give yourself, like, if you can come up with 75 impeachable offenses, and that's probably a low estimate, then you give yourself 75 bites at the apple. Start with one, impeach him for that, then have a Senate impeachment trial on that. If they don't convict him and remove him, move on to the next one. Do the same thing. Impeach, 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 impeach until we remove his ass. Or if not, just keep impeaching him until his term expires. Have him go down in history as the president who was impeached 97 times. Sounds good to me. Anyway, what else do I have here? Jack Smith. You know, I was intending to watch that hearing. I gave up. I didn't watch it. I'm like, why the fuck would I do this to myself? I'm not going to learn anything. You know, I followed this very closely at the time. I know the crimes he committed. I read everything. I read the indictments. I read every report I can get my hands on. I'm not going to learn anything from this stupid hearing. And these hearings aren't efforts to get at the truth anyway, especially on the Republican side. These are Fox News hearings. That's what they are. You know, when these Republicans get their 2 minutes, 5 minutes, however long they got to ask questions, every question they asked, everything they do is performative. I saw one guy. Oh, he was a disgusting little twerp piece of shit. I have no idea who he is. Never saw him before. I don't know what his name is. I heard him ask Jack Smith a few questions, and just the tone, yelling at him. He'd ask him a question, just hysterically asking him a question. He's all riled up. Jack Smith then very deliberately and calmly tries to answer the question. And before he could get 2 words out, he's attacking him with the next question. And that's how it went the whole time. What these Republicans are interested in is creating sound bites for Fox News. Be as dramatic, be as nasty and insulting as you can to Jack Smith in the hopes that your soundbite will make it on Sean Hannity's show that night. Or they'll talk about it on The Five or the Jesse Waters show or Laura Ingraham or whatever. That's the whole goal. They don't give a shit about the truth. The truth is they know that Donald Trump's a criminal. They know he didn't win the election. They know it wasn't stolen. They know he's an insurrectionist who tried to overthrow the republic. They don't care because they only care about themselves. They only care about their own political careers. And they have created among Republican-based voters a cult of personality in service of Donald Trump. And all they want to hear is that Donald Trump is the greatest president ever. He didn't do anything wrong, and you have to defend him to the hilt. That's what the Fox News audience wants to hear. And that's the key to either continuing to be elected to Congress, or perhaps you want to cash out of Congress and get a paid gig at Fox News. That pays a hell of a lot more than whatever they make as members of Congress. What do they make? Mid-hundreds? I'm not exactly sure what they make. You make a hell of a lot more as a Fox News analyst or Fox News host or something. So maybe they want to do that, because Fox News, it's a two-way street. It feeds the Trump administration. Half of his cabinet comes from Fox News. But then the bigger the Trump sycophant you are publicly in Congress or whatever, you go into Fox News. Maybe they want to get into the administration. I kissed Trump's ass enough in this congressional hearing. Maybe he hires me into the administration. Or maybe I go to Fox News, make some millions there, and then I get hired into the administration. Whatever. The point is, they're doing it for their own personal gain, whatever their motives. They don't give a shit about the truth. So I didn't watch it all. But this one little puke I watched, this goes back to how little people know about the Constitution. And it's a good example of how bastardized our Constitution has become. This puke was all exercised and angry with Jack Smith because Jack Smith had subpoenaed phone records of members of Congress. Now, the records that were subpoenaed, there's no substance of the calls. There's no text messages. They're just logs of calls. What numbers did they make calls to, and what numbers did they receive calls or texts from? That's it. So you could see who's communicating with who. Can't see the substance of the communication. And this was all done pursuant to, subpoenas, proper subpoenas. And this little puke was saying that this is a violation of the Constitution. Specifically, it was a violation of the speech and debate clause. These members of Congress think that they have immunity, just blanket immunity because of the speech or debate clause. Now, what that clause actually says is that anything members of Congress say on the floor of Congress, speaking in Congress, cannot be used against them. They can't be prosecuted for anything they say. They can't be sued for anything they say. So you've seen it before. Sometimes members of Congress have threatened to release classified information by reading it on the floor of Congress because they can't be prosecuted for it. That's the speech or debate clause. They have immunity for anything they say while they're speaking in Congress. That's it. Now, they have extrapolated from that this idea that that's blanket immunity from prosecution, from civil process, from having their phone records subpoenaed. It's absurd. I mean, it's like nobody gives a shit what the Constitution and the law actually says. I want it to mean I have blanket immunity, so that's what we're going to say it is. And I will admit that the courts have fucked this all up too, and have expanded the scope of congressional immunity far beyond actually what the Constitution says. I mean, this is one of the things that Lindsey Graham argued, was that he was immune, he was protected and had complete immunity when he went down to Georgia and tried to pressure elections officials there to throw out votes. He says he was protected by the speech or debate clause. It's absurd. Anyway, this little fucking puke, I wish I knew his name. But yeah, I didn't watch. What's the point of listening to that crap? All right. Any questions, guys? Did you see that Joe Rogan? Joe Rogan is, screw Joe Rogan. Let me just say that right off the top. Joe Rogan, it may very well be that Donald Trump wouldn't be president, but for Joe Rogan. He gave him 3 hours uninterrupted on his show, and then he endorsed him. And as you know, the young male vote was a crucial vote in the last election. And these are people who, listen to these podcast bros, and Joe Rogan is the biggest podcast there is. So screw Joe Rogan, but at least now he is criticizing the Trump administration. He's done it many times now, specifically with respect to, he doesn't like what ICE is doing. And this is important, and this is good, and this should be encouraged, because if we're going to turn the tide here, we're going to have some of these people who have been supporting Donald Trump turn against Donald Trump. But that doesn't mean we forget what they did. And Joe Rogan, I mean, he's angry about what he's seeing with these ICE raids, but you know what? Joe has blood on his hands as far as I'm concerned. Perhaps if Joe Rogan, very directly, if Joe Rogan didn't do what he did, Renee Good might not have been murdered. That's a direct line as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, I'm glad he's speaking out against this, but also fuck Joe Rogan and everyone else who voted for him. With respect to Renee Good, I posted a video on the Romano Report earlier today where I talked about the autopsy that was done. The state of Minnesota did an autopsy, and we haven't learned the results of that yet. But state law also allows for the families to do private independent autopsies, and that was done. And lawyers for the family released some of the findings of that autopsy. And they found that she was shot, I believe, in the arm. She was shot through the breast, and she was shot point blank right through the side of her head, the left side of her head, right through to the other side. That's the kill shot, obviously. This guy's cooked, as the kids say. That tells you right there that any arguments of self-defense are gone. I think he has no legitimate arguments for self-defense, but to the extent he has any, they can only possibly apply to shots fired when he was in front of the vehicle. And as I said, I don't think he has any legitimate argument, period. Even if he only had fired shots from the front of the vehicle, he still has no legitimate self-defense argument in my view. But to the extent he has any, it only applies to shots he fired when he was in front of the car. This is absolute proof. Support the Election Truth Alliance. Oh, by the way, I'll comment on that in a second. But now we know for a fact, if that's true, and of course, I'm sure it's true, that tells you everything you need to know, that this was murder. Because he would have, at that time, been standing on the side of the vehicle, on the side of the driver's door, which means this car was fully passing him. He was in no danger anymore. Shot her point blank on the side of the head. There's no defense whatsoever to that. He is screwed. He's going to be indicted, and he is, God willing, going to be convicted by a jury and sent to prison. Now, I talked about this. A lot of comments. Oh, he's never going to be indicted. He'll just get pardoned. Again, my quest to educate as many people about the law and the Constitution as possible, let me deal with some of that. I'm sure most of you are aware of this. Trump can't pardon him for state crimes. Okay? And when I say he's going to be indicted, I mean he's going to be indicted under Minnesota state law. I hope he's indicted under federal law, but as of right now, they're trying to cover it all up. They're saying, oh, this shouldn't even be investigated, but then they are investigating it. And have you noticed J.D. Vance is out there? The administration is changing its tune now about this. They're kind of walking back their just unapologetic defense of this shooter. Now they're starting to soften their language a little bit. I don't know how far they'll go in all of that, but it may be. The political pressure may be such, and the facts are just so god awful. And so obviously that this man is guilty. They may feel forced. And Donald Trump may change his mind because of his horrible poll numbers and what it's looking like to be a blue wave blowout of the tickles back, blowout of Republicans in the midterms. Donald Trump may decide it's in his political best interest to order the DOJ to indict him. I don't know. That certainly doesn't appear to be the case now, but that could change. So, I mean, their defense of this thug is not a principled defense. They know he's guilty. It's a political defense. If the political calculus changes, they will change. So it's not outside the realm of possibility that the feds indict him too. But Minnesota is definitely going to indict him. I don't see how they don't. And the federal government freezing out the local law enforcement from their investigation has no impact whatsoever on whether or not the state can bring charges or whether the state can conduct their own investigation. Absolutely not. And just because they're not giving access to all the evidence that the feds have doesn't mean shit. The most important evidence is the tape. We all have seen that, or the tapes, plural. Well, we've got that. The state's got that. Far and away the most important. There's no question I mean, think about it. What needs to be proved? Most things are not in contention at all. The only issue is whether or not he properly acted in self-defense. That's the only issue. There's no question about whether or not this woman is dead. There's no question about how she got killed. And there's no question about who did it. The only thing that the state needs to prove is that he wasn't legitimately acting in self-defense. That's all they have to prove. And the best evidence for that is the videotape, coupled with the autopsy results we now have. That's it. The state has all of that. Now, the state doesn't have the vehicle right now. And even if they never get access to the vehicle, so what? What's the vehicle going to show you? Maybe you will see bullet trajectory. So you can kind of, he was standing here when the bullet went. All right. We could see that from the video. And the most important thing about bullet trajectories is the fact that this woman got shot in the side of the head. That's the most important information. But they're going to get the vehicle anyway. If we have to go to court to force the feds to give access to this information, hey, thank you. I appreciate anything you feel that you want to contribute. Thank you. I appreciate it. So the state has a right. I mean, this is a crime under state law. One of their residents was murdered. They have a right to this evidence. So if you got to go fight about it in court, fine, fight about it in court. They're going to get it. Maybe they're hiding some of these ICE thugs so that they can't be interviewed by state officials. They can get them too. Get a grand jury subpoena, hunt these fuckers down. You can get them. They're just going to plead the fifth anyway. So they're not going to be that helpful anyway. Because as far as I'm concerned, it's not just the shooter. Some of these other thugs have some degree of criminal culpability for some other crimes potentially as well. So they're probably just going to keep their damn mouth shut anyway. Other witnesses who were at the scene, okay, so the feds won't turn over their reports or their witness statements. So interview the witnesses yourself. So the point is they have all the evidence they need, and the feds can't prevent the state from filing charges anyway. And now, given the fact that he shot her from point blank range right in the side of the head, he's fucked. I don't see how it's even possible that this guy's not going to be indicted. And let me tell you something. Usually, when there is a fatal shooting, and even when there's legitimate arguments of self-defense, usually prosecutors leave that shit up to the jury. Okay, it's very seldom that prosecutors review a case where clearly someone has been killed and they say, you know what? The claim of self-defense here is so obvious. It's so right. It's so obviously self-defense that we're not even going to bring it to the grand jury. We're not going to try this case at all. We're just going to decide on our own without letting a jury decide. We're going to decide on our own that this person was completely justified in killing that other person. That almost never happens. So even if you kill somebody defending your home, defending your family members or whatever, and you're completely justified, you're still going to have to probably prove that in a court of law because you're probably going to be indicted. And the prosecutor will say, hey, you can assert self-defense as a defense to these charges, but someone's dead, you're going on trial, and we're going to let a jury decide. That's how it usually happens. And that's in cases where, it's arguable. This is not arguable. There's no legitimate argument for it. And it also, like I said, it happens even when it's really not that arguable. You kill somebody, you're going on trial. And if you have a claim of self-defense, then you're gonna assert that with the jury. So, but this is so obvious. Any objective person looking at this knows that he's guilty. So he's going to be convicted. Or I don't know that he's going to be convicted. You never know with fucking juries. I'm telling you. Did you ever watch 12 Angry Men? I never watched it before until this past weekend. Can you imagine that? And it was all about what's going on in the jury room. The arguments they have, they took an initial vote. It was 11-1 for conviction. The one holdout was Henry Fonda, and he eventually convinces everybody one by one to vote not guilty. Now, I say that because you can never count on a jury, right? What if Henry Fonda wasn't on the jury? All right, they would have found him guilty like that, right? But I got to tell you, I have very little faith in the jury system. I hate to tell you this, having been a prosecutor and defense attorney for many years. A lot of people, a lot of trial attorneys will try to talk to jurors afterwards, especially a lot of prosecutors, try to see what arguments, what they did well, feedback. I want to hear feedback from the jury. I did that a couple of times. What a waste of fucking time. Listen, finding out what jurors actually discussed in the jury room, you don't need that shit in your life. You think they're out there following the judge's instruction. You think they're in there actually having serious conversations about the evidence. I mean, that goes on, certainly. And not obviously, some juries are better than others. But man, they're in there talking about what the prosecutors were wearing. Some speech impediment, some lisps that one of the lawyers had, or, do you think those two lawyers are sleeping together? Or, whatever. Just fucking nonsense. And they decide cases based on nonsense. I didn't like that prosecutor. I thought she had an attitude. And it influences how they vote in their verdict. Are you fucking kidding me? Yeah. So I have very little. I mean, think about it. What do I say all the time? We're surrounded by fucking morons in this country, right? Who do you think serves on juries? Fucking morons. These people are picked at random. And how do they get on a jury, by the way? Usually the most ignorant people get on the jury, because if they know anything, if they sound smart in any way, they don't get on the jury. They get cut. You want fucking blank canvas airheads on the jury for the most part. That's who gets on the jury, usually. Sometimes you want, depending upon what your case is, your side might want a smart person on there. And so some smart people do get on the jury. Each side gets a certain number of automatic strikes, and then you get strikes for cause. And so you get a mix. So I don't want to leave a false impression here that everyone who's on a jury, you're only on a jury because you're an idiot. That's not true. That's certainly not true. Smart people get on juries, and sometimes, like I said, you want smart people on your jury, and you're looking for smart people on your jury. But a lot of idiots are on the jury. And remember, in criminal trials, the verdict needs to be unanimous. So anyway, the point is, I don't want to presume conviction, but damn, there are no such thing as a slam dunk cases, but damn, this one looks pretty close, in my opinion. So I don't know how he doesn't get tried. Hey, I said, someone's saying, hey, I've been on a jury. That's what I'm saying. Not everyone who gets on a jury is an idiot. I walk that back, but a lot of idiots get on juries, and it needs to be unanimous. So you need even the idiots to vote the right way. And sometimes, people lie to get on juries. That happens too. You try to weed those people out, but it's difficult. Jury selection can be difficult. Okay. Any other questions? What else did I have here? I bookmarked a couple things I wanted to talk about. I did Joe Rogan. I did JD Vance a little bit. Fuck JD. I don't want to talk about him. We got this major winter storm. I saw this post by this idiot president we have. He wrote, record cold wave expected to hit 40 states. Rarely seen anything like it before. No, we only see it like at least once every fucking winter. But no, we never seen that before. How old is this fucking guy? 80 years old? You never seen a fucking snowstorm before? Did this just crap out or something? What the hell? Oh, no, there it is. Thought my live stream just crapped out. Anyway, back to the idiot. He's 80 years old. He's never seen a fucking snowstorm. Anyway, and I know a lot of the country is freaking out about it. I get it. Not, it's hitting parts of the country that are not used to storms of this nature and aren't prepared. Anyway, rarely seen anything like it before. Could the environmental insurrectionists, what the fuck? Environmental insurrectionists, please explain. I thought you liked insurrectionists. Whatever happened to global warming? This is don't you hate living in such a stupid fucking country for whom that stupid comment is like a smart comment? Whatever happened to global warming? Yeah, it's all a hoax. It's embarrassing how stupid these people are. I mean, we're a full-on anti-science country. Well, we're not a full-on anti-science country, but the country is being run right now by a full-on anti-science party. I just read an article about James Cameron, that's his name, right? Director, Avatar, Titanic, Terminator. Is that his name? I think that's his name. Let me make sure that's his name. I don't want to get his name wrong. Yeah, James Cameron. Okay, that was for nothing then. Yeah, James Cameron. Anyway, he is leaving the country, moving to, I think, New Zealand. And he was just laying into the country. This isn't the same country anymore. Everyone's at each other's throats. It's anti-science. You know, we're anti-vaccine now. We're anti-medical science. We got measles breaking out all over the fucking place. And we're screwed if there's ever another pandemic. We're going to be screwed. And he's just like, you know, the people, we're no longer the same people. And he's true. He's true. He's correct. That is true. Where was I going with this? Oh, yeah. Anti-science party. So he was talking about that we're anti-science. And especially things like climate science. It's like they're purposely stupid. Is it just trolling? Is that what it is? Is it trolling? Because there's snow in the winter, that means there's no global warming. Because we still have winter, it means there's no global warming. I mean, for God's sakes, I don't even know why. It's pointless to even talk to these people. But I mean, the Earth's weather system is so unbelievably complex. We can't possibly understand exactly how changes in the temperature of the Earth and the composition of the atmosphere is going to manifest itself exactly in our climate and our daily weather patterns. It's impossible. You know, we have supercomputers trying to model this stuff out, and the models aren't even right. We never get things exactly right. You know, we got a hurricane coming, right? You got all these different models showing different tracks, and we don't know. We're doing our best. Climate science is evolving. And, you know, the atmosphere is constantly changing. How do you think, I mean, for crying out loud, we are literally changing the chemical composition of the atmosphere. You don't think that's going to have some climatological effect? You know, we're putting all these greenhouse gases into the air, which we know trap heat. So we're adding tons and tons of greenhouse gases, which trap heat. Solar radiation, it comes in, it strikes the earth, it's converted into heat. That heat is trapped in by this thick atmosphere with greenhouse gases that we're pumping in at an incredible rate into the atmosphere. Of course, we're adding heat to the system, right? It's a closed system. We're adding heat to it. We're adding energy to it. Of course, that's going to have an effect. Because we can't predict exactly what the exact effect is going to be a year from now, 10 years from now, 30 years from now. We can't say exactly what the average daily fucking temperature is going to be at this given location on the globe at any given point. I mean, it's ridiculous. They just, oh, well, there's a winter storm. That must mean there's no global warming. Fucking idiots. And it's bad enough that, I mean, he is stupid, right? But again, we're not the same country. Tens of millions of morons think that that's a persuasive argument that there's no global warming. God damn. You know, where I grew up, we used to go ice skating when I was a kid. All the time. On the ponds in my town. We go ice skating. Can't ice skate there anymore. I mean, I'm sure you can now and then. But for the most part, not where I used to live. Where I live now, yeah, you can ice skate. Kids used to play hockey and ice skate. We were always out there on the ice. It doesn't happen anymore, or very seldom happens anymore. Oh, there's no global warming. Nothing's changing. Everything's exactly the same. You know, where I live now, it used to be rare that you'd get, in the middle of summer that it would the temperature would exceed 90 degrees. Now it exceeds 90 degrees all the time, not all the time, but frequently. I mean, every summer now we exceed 90 degrees many, many times. We get over 100 degrees, nearly every single summer up here. Just to never happen. But nothing's changed. Nothing's different. Got to own the fucking libs, right? Fucking morons. They'll kill us all just to own the libs. Okay, what else? All right. How long have I been talking? It's probably been a while. Do I have anything else? Let me see real quick. Because wanted to hit this stuff. Oh, let me end with this. I think, I am looking at an article right now on my monitor instead of the live stream. I think you guys still see me. Not sure if you do. I'm gonna run the risk. If maybe you see the screen, I don't think so. But anyway, here's this article. Trump just let slip the real reason he wants to use the Insurrection Act. President Donald Trump keeps toying with the use of the Insurrection Act to essentially declare an emergency state that mobilizes military forces in American cities, something he has considered many times in the past, even to potentially seize voting machines. But he just blurted out the real reason he loves the idea. Greg Sargent wrote for the New Republic, an analysis published Wednesday, and it's incredibly revealing. Specifically, Trump told right-wing anchor Katie Pavlich on News Nation, "I don't think it is time to invoke it yet. It might be at some point. It does make life a lot easier. You don't go through the court system. It's just a much easier thing to do." Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I have no doubt that this idiot thinks that the Insurrection Act empowers him to do all this shit. And unfortunately, a lot of people out there think so also. As bad as the Insurrection Act is, the only thing it allows two things to use the military for. One, if there is an active insurrection against the federal government, you can use the military to put down that insurrection. All right. That's where it gets its name, obviously. We don't have an insurrection. Maybe he'll claim that the protests are an insurrection. Okay, you send the military in there and you put down the insurrection. That's one. The other, which is much more broad in scope, is you can use the military as for domestic law enforcement. So you say, oh, the situation's out of control. Federal law enforcement is insufficient. They need backup. So I can use the military to back up law enforcement. That's essentially what it is. That's the purpose. And so the question is, so he deploys the military to, say, Minneapolis or wherever for law enforcement. What can they do? Does that mean they can seize voting machines? Because people think, they talk as if the Insurrection Act allows him to do this shit legally. Because that's why he's invoking it, so that he can then cancel elections. He can seize voting machines. No, doesn't let him do any of that stuff legally. Okay? Maybe he tries to do that, but it's not because the Insurrection Act allows him to do that. The Insurrection Act allows him to use the military for law enforcement when federal law enforcement is not sufficient. You can use the military for law enforcement, but they are bound by the exact same rules. They are serving in a law enforcement capacity, not a military capacity. They're not allowed to go in there and act as they would in Somalia if they were there doing some sort of war operation, or Iraq or Venezuela or anywhere else. They're there as domestic law enforcement. They're serving as law enforcement, and they are bound by the exact same rules and regulations and laws as federal law enforcement is. Okay, so they can't enter a home without a warrant, for example. They can't just arrest people. They need a warrant, or a crime has to be committed in their presence. They can't stop a vehicle unless they have reasonable suspicion. And on and on and on. It doesn't empower them to do anything that law enforcement isn't empowered to do. Now, that being said, Trump doesn't understand that. He hears Insurrection Act. He probably thinks that he does have all these special powers. I have no doubt that he does. And maybe that's his plan. Seize voting machines. The thing is, if you're going to try to do this across the entire country, it's not possible. We don't have enough military. Oh, by the way, I was off the live stream screen. I hope you all can see me. I think you all would be complaining if you couldn't see me at this point. Mark's phone always pings. He thinks we don't know he's Batman. damn it. You figured me out. See this light back here, it's a bat signal. It goes, goes both ways. Anyway, this is how I respond. So if I get a ping and if I flash my bat signal, that's my way of telling people I'm on the way. But I'm not leaving the live stream right now, so I'm not responding with my light beacon. Anyway, he may think that it gives him all that extra. Oh, yeah. Insurrection Act, military. We don't have enough military. Did anyone ever, do you know how big this country is? Do you know how many people live in this country? We don't have enough military to do it, number one. But so maybe he tries to do it in certain areas. That might be his plan. I don't doubt that for a second. But my point is the Insurrection Act doesn't give him legal authority to do it. So just invoking the Insurrection Act doesn't give him power to do something which he didn't otherwise have the power to do. None of it's legal. There's no act he can invoke to make seizing voting machines legal or to make, closing down polling places legal. So if he's going to do that, my point is, if he's going to do that, he doesn't need to invoke the Insurrection Act to do it because it's not legal no matter how he does it. Now, maybe, the Insurrection Act, he puts them in place. And then once they're there, he orders them to do all this illegal shit. Maybe. And that might be their plan. I have no doubt. I mean, I think that's what ICE is for, to try to suppress turnout in blue areas. I mean, you can't do it across the whole country, but you can do it in certain areas. And maybe that will be sufficient to swing the election. I don't know. He's going to do some shit. There's no doubt about it. I'm just saying, just for purposes of understanding what the Insurrection Act is and is not, it doesn't give him any of that authority. Doesn't mean he won't try to do it. Because again, if these people are willing to violate the law and follow his illegal orders, then I guess he can do some of this stuff. My point is just that there's under no circumstances is it legal. Now, maybe that doesn't matter to some people, but at least you should understand what these things. I don't understand why people don't want to understand this stuff. Yeah, I know he doesn't follow the law because every time I explain what the law is or the Constitution is, I get people angrily respond to me. Doesn't matter. He doesn't follow the law anyway. Yes, I know that, but don't you at least want to understand what the law does say? And the Constitution does say, so that at least you can understand the way in which he's violating it. But it seems people don't want to even understand that. But whatever. All right. I think that's all I've got. I will hold up for a minute or two if there's any questions. Oh, good. I'm glad I can answer your question about ICE at the polling stations. Functioning democratic country would have removed him long ago. Ain't that the friggin' truth? And again, this goes back to my point. We're not a properly functioning democratic country. We're not a rule of law based country. Which is why it's insane to think that there's, businesses are going to relocate here. Like Trump really thinks when you get rid of the rule of law and you become a dictator and the entire, rule of law is just based on your whims. I mean, that's not conducive to business. Who in their right fucking mind is going to say, you know what? I know it takes a long time and tens of millions of dollars to start a new manufacturing operation, but you know what? I want to go to the United States. This guy changes his mind all the fucking time. There's no rule of law. If you say anything that he doesn't like, he might arrest you. He might shut down your business. He might sick regulators on you. That sounds like a good place to open up my manufacturing plant. Are you out of your fucking mind? No one's going to do that. And that's exactly what we're seeing. It's not just that these tariffs, which are only temporary anyway. I mean, everybody knows, first of all, like I said, it's going to take years. You got to find a site, or you purchase an existing building, refurbish it, or build from the ground up, or whatever. It takes a long time to get a manufacturing plant up and running, and an investment of tens of millions of dollars at least. And you're not going to be up and running until probably this stupid fuck is 6 feet under or out of office. At which time those tariffs aren't going to be in place anyway, and the tariffs might not be in place after the Supreme Court rules, although I kind of expect they will be, but you never know. The point is, even just on the tariffs. You're not going to make a huge business decision like that based on these tariffs, which he puts on and off like it's a fucking bodily function. That doesn't, nobody is that stupid. And then on top of the tariffs and the adverse economic incentives, no one's going to do it just based on the fact that we're not a rule of law country anymore. If you want to create a good business environment, you need at the bare minimum a stable rule of law. We don't have that anymore. We're a banana fucking republic. That's what we are. And the states need to rise up and seize their authority back in this constitutional system. At least they should be pushing back, but too many of them are not either. And these goddamn governors need to start banding together, why the fuck are they not? You know why I think they're not? I don't know. This is speculation on my part, but every governor sees themselves, just like every senator sees themselves as a future president. And who knows how many of them are planning on running right now. And I don't know. I think that I don't want to, if we band together, I want to go it alone. I want to be the tough talking one. And actually, most of them aren't even tough talking. So I don't know. I'm just talking out of my ass here. I don't know what explains it. They should all be banding together. I don't understand it. I really don't. All of these, the entire country is faced with this tyranny, and we're all just sitting back individually doing nothing. Individual states, individual governors. One of them might give an interview here. One of them might say something good. Why aren't they banding together? I don't get it. Anyway. All right. Yeah, I gotta go. It's getting late. So thank you for watching. I don't know when I'm going to do it again. I will be doing this more frequently. I'm trying to figure out a schedule for this. I'd like it to be more regular so that this is the time I'm doing the lives. And that's probably the way, as I said in the last one, I'm probably going to be doing most of my content here on the podcast channel. It's probably going to be as live streams, and what I'll probably do for YouTube reasons, record the live stream, then take it down and re-upload it as a standalone video to be watched later. Because from the advice that I'm being given is that the algorithm and the discovery and all of this shit, how these videos are put in front of people, it treats live streams, which after they're done recording, they just sit on the channel. The algorithm treats those live stream videos different than if it's just a new upload. Now, I don't know if there's anything to it. I don't fucking get this shit, to be honest with you, but I have noticed it seems to be true based on the data that I'm seeing on my channel. So I'm going to give that a shot. At least with this one, we'll see how it goes. But that's what I think I'm going to be. I'm going to be recording them live, and then maybe downloading them and re-uploading them as standalone videos. But I'd like to let you guys know what my schedule is going to be, and just put it up on the on the channel. Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, 3:30 or something, whatever it is. But I'm still trying to figure that out. I got a lot of things in my life that I'm trying to balance. I'm trying to find a place that I can sort of commit to this time as a general rule. But that's where I am with it. I hope you like this. I appreciate your questions. I know I didn't take too many questions today, but I kind of had diarrhea of the mouth on the constitutional shit. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend if I don't do this. But you'll see me on the Romano Report. I will be uploading there over the weekend. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.